Almost ready. Hello. Alright. Hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking a little bit real talk today about our society and about our culture and about, essentially the title of this video is the real reason you can't feel good in our society. Now, before I get started, okay, I want to first say hello, that this is not about blaming anybody. So if you start to feel like shame in yourself that you're participating in these systems that I'm talking about, please do not. Because, okay, all of us are participating in systems that are harmful. And it's not because we suck, and it's not because we want to cause harm, and it's not because we're ignorant, and it's not because we're blind, and it's not because we're horrible people. It's because we were born into and indoctrinated into a world that was built and set up the way that it is way before we existed, okay? No one alive today invented the systems that we have. So we really need to be compassionate with ourselves that, again, nobody alive today invented the systems that we have. No one alive today knew that this is how this was going to be, knew that this is how this was all going to unfold, and decided to do it anyways. If you're watching this video, you're probably already majorly conscious compared to the average person. You're probably already doing so many things to try to make this world a better place. You're probably already so much more aware than everybody else. So really, before we even get started, the main thing we all need to have before we get started is compassion for ourselves and understanding that this is lineage stuff. This is stuff that came way before us. And the point of this is partially to help us kind of decouple ourselves from the self-help, self-improvement, self-love world that tells us we're completely responsible for our lives, okay? Because I get it, a lot of people in the regular world who aren't into spirituality, or maybe who are into more like religious spirituality, tend to feel and act and live like they have no responsibility over their life, right? Like everything is just something that happens to them. They have no agency. They're just like, oh no, if I get sick, I'm sick. If something bad happens with my finances, something bad happens with my finances. If I get a terrible relationship, I don't know why they broke up with me. Like, there are a lot of people on the planet who literally don't take responsibility for really anything and feel like they're victims in life all the time. And what I'm saying is, what I'm noticing, especially in the spirituality, self-help, self-improvement communities, most people have taken so much responsibility for themselves, so much responsibility for everything that happens in their reality, to the point of like, right, like the kind of Abraham Hicks law of attraction, believing that literally everything that happens to you, literally everything you experience, literally everything that comes into your life is because of you, is because of some thought you had, because of some vibration, some sort of thing you manifested, and there's this kind of cult around this idea that like your life, like you are the center of the universe essentially, and that everything that's happening to you is happening because of you, and like if it wasn't in this life, it's a result of something you did in the last life, and this is just like repaying karma and blah 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 blah. And we can kind of see that, right, we have these two extremes, and usually in reality, neither extreme is correct. They both hold seeds of truth, and when we bring them together, we tend to find the actual truth, yeah? So it's not that we're completely helpless and have no power and there's literally nothing we can do, we're all just victims to the system. And it's not that we are completely in control, and that the universe fully revolves around each human being and every choice they make and every vibration they have and every emotion they feel, and everything that happens to you in your life is because of you, right? We have to be pragmatic, and we kind of have to say, like, no, there's a healthy balance here. Our lives are a result of both our choices, our actions, our feeling states, our patterns, the way that we interact with the world. Our thoughts and beliefs affect the things that we do and don't do, and the things that we have and don't have, and the actions we take and the actions we don't take, and how we interact. That all is true. And like I said, we were born into a world, into a structure, into a body, into a family, into a culture, into a place and time on the planet that has nothing to do with us. We didn't invent it. We didn't choose it. It's just, okay? And like I said, we can't explain it. Well, first of all, half of it we can explain, right? The culture thing, the how humanity got to where we are, we can explain that. We can see the whole lineage of what happened from like pretty much the beginning of human history, and how we've been repeating ourselves and kind of evolving on our patterns all throughout human history to get to the culture we were born into. We can see how that happened, yeah? And then there are the things like our bodies and our families, and like, why did we choose that, or why did that happen to us? And maybe these are questions we'll never be able to answer. But the ultimate reality is we didn't consciously in this lifetime choose, I'm going to have this body, I'm going to have this family, I'm going to be born at this time, I'm going to be born at whatever time. It was, for all intents and purposes, for our experience, a random occurrence. That's what we were born into, this is the hand we were dealt, and this is what we have to do with it, right? Even our cognitive capacity, a lot of these things, we didn't choose. It's not that you're more intelligent than someone else because you did something good, or less intelligent than someone else because you did something good. Like, it's just, it is what it is. And so we have to be pragmatic in the sense that we want to be able, again, as always, to take responsibility for that which we do have control over. And we need to be compassionate with ourselves and realistic about the things that we don't have control over. Because when we over-assume responsibility, when we over-assume that everything is about us, and everything is because of us, and everything has to do with us, and we are the cause of all things, that is equally disempowering as believing you have no power, right? When you assume that you have power over things you actually don't, when you believe that you are the cause of things that you actually aren't, you're going to feel guilt and shame. You're going to feel these false emotions that are telling you, hey, the actual mindset you have around this is incorrect. It's painful, not because it's true that you should be guilty, not because it's true that you should feel shame. It feels shitty because it's a thing that's shitty. It's a thing that's not working. It's a thing that doesn't feel good. And you're blaming yourself for something that you didn't cause. And that actually stagnates you. Okay? So this is the kind of stuff I want to be talking about, and I want to be real about this, because I feel like so much in the spirituality community, there's just no mind paid to the realities that we live in. And so today, my main point is to bring some validation and to bring some compassion to those of us out there who feel anxiety or depression all the time, kind of no matter what we do, who get into these kind of dark phases, or get into these places where we're just like, oh, like I can't seem to make myself feel good. And also those of us who find ourselves coping and scapegoating and numbing, and we're trying to do all of our self-love work, and we're trying to fix ourselves, and we're trying to do everything we can, and we're still just like not being able to be happy in this world. We're not being able to make ourselves feel good in the systems that exist. And we're blaming ourselves. And we're telling ourselves there's something wrong with me because everyone else seems to be able to be fine. Everyone else seems to be able to get on with it. Everyone else seems to be able to have success in their job or in their relationships or in their bodies or in their whatever. And I'm like constantly struggling with this thing. And what's wrong with me that I can't improve myself? And even just like I say, like just what's wrong with me that I have this general depression or this general anxiety or this general just not being able to be at peace like everyone else. And that this is what I want to talk about today. Because the spirituality and the self-help and the self-improvement world are going to tell you that this is something wrong with you. That there's still, like, you're not being able to find peace. You're not being able to find security. Like, you're not being positive enough. You're not seeing reality good enough. Because, right, there's even, like, the Byron Katie teaching of, like, reality is perfect. And if you see it for how it really is, there will be no pain. And it's like, that's not true. Because again, what is the purpose of the pain mechanism? What is the purpose of the pain mechanism? The purpose of the pain mechanism is to show us where something is harming us. Okay? So it is true and it is a reality that there are things on this physical plane, on the mental emotional plane, on the spiritual plane, that harm us. And we are always going to feel pain in the presence of that thing. And we would never not want to. We don't actually want to get to a place where we never feel pain again in life. That is not an actual spiritual aspiration we should have. Because that would be in a position where the things that are then naturally going to occur always in this life that are harmful, we don't feel it. And how is that helpful? Just really think that through for a second. If I took away all of your body's physical capacity to feel pain, would that actually help you survive better? Would that help you have a life that feels good for you overall better? No. In the short term, it would feel great to never have pain. But in the long term, without pain, if you don't have the capacity to feel pain in your body, you will destroy your body and you will not know why. You will not see it coming and it will die. It will lessen your capacity to survive. It will lessen your capacity to create a life for yourself that's continually evolving towards something that feels good for you, that is aligned with who you are and that allows you to express. Because we need that contrast of this feels good compared to this thing that feels bad to understand what are the things that work for me and what are the things that are against my nature. If we didn't have the capacity to feel pain, we would destroy ourselves and we would lose the capacity to figure out what actually works for us. And it is the same thing with emotional pain and mental pain and spiritual pain. We don't actually want the pain to go away forever. Because this reality is never going to be perfectly perfect for us. We need the capacity to feel pain so that we can be pragmatic about what isn't working. And so that we can make it better for ourselves. That's how progress happens. Okay, so we need to remember that there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you if you feel pain. It's okay. Either there's something in the real reality that's against my nature, that's harming me, that I think is normal, that I think is how it should be because I've been indoctrinated into culture, and it isn't, and it's harming me. Or, right, I'm believing something that's out of alignment with truth, which is causing me to act in ways that go against what's actually good for me in the reality. Pain is always a messenger that there's just something out of alignment with supporting our growth. Our thoughts, our behaviors, both, our indoctrination, our culture. Okay? So we have to remember, always, pain is not a bad thing. Pain does not mean there's something wrong with you. Pain does not mean you're failing. Pain is not something we want to get rid of forever. Pain does not mean we are helpless and hopeless and going to be stuck in pain forever, and we have to figure out some mental, emotional gymnastics to get ourselves out of it. Pain is simply a messenger that the better we get at just feeling it and saying, okay, where is this coming from? What are my thoughts? What am I, right? We unpack it. We learn to unpack it. We learn to adjust and make changes based on what hurts, based on what feels good. We no longer see pain and pleasure as good and bad. We just see them as messengers so that we can learn. We become less afraid of these things and we become more open to their messages, okay? So that's my point. I'm here to say that not all of your anxiety, not all of your depression, not all of your needing to cope and numb and stimulate and not being able to make it in this world is because of a deficiency in you. Is because of a lack of self-love. Is because you're not doing something right. Some of it has to do with the fact that you live in a system that is inherently harmful, that you did not invent, that you did not create, that you have to participate in on some level every single day in order to survive. The point of this video is to say, when we overtake responsibility, we're going to drive ourselves into delusion and into obsessive behavior with our thoughts and our feelings and nitpicking ourselves. Because we're going to be missing the other half of the picture, which is the stuff that we didn't create, that we didn't invent, that is happening to us, literally because of the body we were born in, the country we were born in, the culture we were born into. That if we don't acknowledge these things, we can't heal, we can't integrate, and then we can't actually make the changes to the things that need changes. Because if we're, like the analogy I like to give, right? If your car engine is broken, it literally doesn't matter how many times you change the oil. Your car isn't going to work. Right? If your car engine is the thing that is broken, it won't matter how many times you change the oil. It doesn't matter how high quality the oil is. It doesn't matter how much you change all the other parts of the car. You get new brake pads. You get new everything. Paint jobs. The car's not going to work until you fix the engine. And it is the same with this. If we keep trying to self-improve and self-love and mental gymnastic, positive frenzy ourselves out of pain that's being caused by the systems we live in, we're just going to drive ourselves into obsession over a thing that never works. And this is part of how the self-help world makes so much money. Because they keep convincing you that everything is you. Everything is inside of you. Everything is because of you. Everything is in control from you. And if you just improve your mental state, your mind, your body, your spirit enough, if you just become empowered enough, if you just keep coming to these seminars and keep reading these books and keep doing these meditations, eventually you will be transcended. And if you're still having pain, if you're still having anxiety, if you're still self-sabotaging and coping all these things, don't worry. There's another lecture for that. There's another coaching session for that. There's another blah, 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 blah. And no one is saying, well, maybe some of it is because the culture is shitty and you feel like it is because it is. And it's not a problem with you. And you're not broken. You're just aware. So this is what I'm trying to talk about today. It doesn't mean we have no power. That is not what I'm trying to say. It doesn't mean we can't make our lives better. We absolutely can. It doesn't mean we don't have power to change things for ourselves even within the system. We do. Okay? This is not a disempowerment message. This is not a just, well, the world is fucked up, so too bad for you message. That's not what I'm saying. But we absolutely have to acknowledge what is fucked up about the world. We have to acknowledge what is fucked up about the systems we live in. If we want to be sane and not constantly try to change the oil, when the engine is broken in ourselves, right? The never-ending navel gazing, it does get spiritual bypassing at some point. Self-love can be a spiritual bypass. If we're using it to say, if I just love myself perfectly, the whole world will be better and my entire life will be painless. That is not reality. Okay? We have to be able to, so if we want to not be obsessive, we need to acknowledge that the world is shitty and there are shitty things. And if we want to actually fix the things that are broken, because again, we do have power to shift the system. We do have power to change our choices. And the more of us who do that, because the system is just made up of the collective, the more of us who just get actually real about what it is that's fucked up and real about the things that are actually going to cause systemic change, and we do those changes instead of meditating more, instead of continually, like I say, just all focusing in on ourselves and then not dealing with the things that need to be dealt with, we can't change the system. So if we don't acknowledge it, if we don't look at it, if we don't say, call it for what it is, we can never get anywhere. Okay, so we have to. We have to be able to look at the stuff that isn't us. And then say, okay, within this bigger picture, where do I have my power to make it better? And how is this not my fault? And how is this not me being broken? Okay, so before I keep going, I want you to know that I've written an article for this. So if you're watching live, it's not there yet. But in my IGTV and on YouTube, on the replay of this, you will see in the description a link to the article. Because the whole article first outlines like the reason that our economic system is the way that it is. And I'll just give you the cold stones. If you feel shitty in our current economic system, if you don't feel like you can ever feel like you have enough, and you're constantly hustling and you're constantly striving, or you constantly feel like it doesn't matter what you do, you can't become successful in it, and you know you don't want to participate in it, and you know that it's shitty, but you don't really know why. This is the bottom line. Our current economic system was built upon, forever, slavery, exploitation, and profit over people. That is how every wealthy nation became wealthy. The only way humanity so far has ever become a powerful nation, from like way back, the original colonizers, which go back really far. If you go back really far, you're going to find colonization really far back. Any civilization that became dominant, that accumulated massive wealth, that eventually innovated because of that wealth, did so through slave labor. Period. There is no wealthy nation on this planet that became wealthy without exploiting people groups. Okay? So we just need to understand, this is the lineage we come with. We're either a lineage of a group of people who were colonizers, or a lineage of people who were colonized, who were slave owners, or the enslaved. Or we were kind of somewhere in the middle, like our lineage is sort of, we were in the wealthy upper crust, but maybe we didn't have the people, or we were the sort of lower. But we need to understand that wealth has always come because, right, the only way it happened was because the workers were not paid fairly. Because if the workers had been paid fairly, there could have been no mass wealth accumulation. If it had been equitable work, pay for work, there could never have been accumulation of wealth somewhere in the line. Okay, we have to acknowledge that. That's how we got here. Countries who are massively wealthy colonized and exploited. They othered people groups. They used that labor and took more for the leaders than was for the workers. That wealth was then accumulated, reinvested in infrastructure, in technology, in whatever. And that's how innovation happened. Unfair pay to the workers so that wealth could be accumulated for the rich and powerful. And then it stayed with the rich and powerful, and the rich and powerful reinvested it. And if we look at our current economic system, what has changed? Very little. Right? If we look at our current economic system, especially in the United States and in Canada, people are generally wage slaves in the sense that you don't get paid equal to what you give to the company. What your labor is actually worth and what you're actually being given are not the same. And that excess wealth that's being generated is going to the top, is going to the CEOs, and that money goes where? To the shareholders, who hoard most of it for themselves, and then reinvest it in other economic endeavors that then follow the same system, make more money for them, and then they invest it in something else, and you see how this works. The workers, the means of production, have nothing to do with the workers. People are not being paid for their labor, and this is the only way the system survives. Trickle-down economics could never happen. If trickle-down economics happened, the system would collapse. Because in order to continue to have profit generation at the rate that we have, and product creation, and the amount of production and productivity that we have to have people who have to work more than what is healthy, more than what is sustainable, in order to make just enough money. Because again, there has to be an incentive to work harder than would be healthy, than would be appropriate for a human being. Because the only way, again, to have the mass productivity that we have is for people to be overworking. If people were paid fairly, if people were valued for their service, for what they actually give to society, and they were paid, like I say, a fair wage for their labor, we would be half as productive. Because people would work an adequate amount. We would have less capital at the top to be reinvested in other countries, or in other economic systems, in other projects. Okay? The entire system would collapse. The system we have right now would break if there was equitable pay for the workers. And we have to understand that. Our systems are completely set up. Law is set up, government is set up, economics are set up to protect this system where most of the wealth is accumulated at the top, to force productivity. Okay? And this forces, like I say, innovation and growth and the expansion of the economy. And we as people, okay, this is another thing we need to understand. Insecurity, the feeling of being insecure, the feeling of being not enough, the feeling of not having enough, whether just true in reality or manufactured by media and culture, is a part of the system. It is not a flaw. It is not a mistake. This is why I'm saying over and over and over again, you finding you're enough is the hugest rebellion you will ever do from the system. Because the insecurity of our system, like I say, either completely practical in the sense that there are massive people groups who, through the system, not through nature, not through actually we can't provide for people, not through actual, just natural, inequality of resources, scarcity, whatever, that people have insecurity. We have human manufactured insecurity. On purpose, because, again, in order for this wealth to be accumulated at the top, for the system to keep working how it works, there have to be groups of people who have been othered, who have been enslaved, who have been made insecure, so don't have access to the resources everyone else does, don't have access to education, don't have access to healthcare, don't have access, and are therefore made to be insecure. And they will then sacrifice themselves for wage slavery because there's no other option for how to survive. And if that's not you, if you have enough, technically speaking, financially, you're more privileged, your not enough is being manufactured into your mind through the media, because again, the other ingredient most important for keeping our systems, our economic systems, going how they go is constant consumption. If we were ever to say, I have a pair of shoes, I got a nice pair of pants, I got a nice shirt, I got, a stable house, everything's good, I don't need to buy stuff for a while. What would happen to our system? It would collapse. At the turn of the 1940s, in the Western world, in America, when we were coming into all the wealth that was created by World War II, because America made a lot of money off World War II. And the middle class, essentially, a huge portion of the population, was lifted out of poverty, was lifted out of insecurity. And there were massive amounts of people who got put into the upper middle class category of now having more than they needed. They all started having an existential crisis. They kept coming to Freud and being like, I'm devoid of meaning, I'm devoid of purpose, because of, yes, right? We had been so focused on getting enough material possessions to make ourselves feel safe for so long. And we finally got there, and then we weren't happy. And instead of saying, okay, well, yes, because now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, our next evolution is to understand ourselves, is to understand how we want to express, and to see the harm that the system we're in is causing. But no, we didn't do that. Freud said, okay, don't worry, we can, because, right, we were seeing the economy is not going to work. If people stop buying stuff, we're producing at rates that are just like astronomical, because we got factories, we got all these things. We're producing at rates that are astronomical, and if other countries aren't buying it, we need domestic people. We need this domestic consumer demand. But if people have been trained up until now to buy things for their utility, everyone has enough stuff. So what did they do? They said, don't worry. We'll sell it based on what it means about you. We'll create trends. We'll create constantly changing in and out. And these types of clothes say this about you, and these types of music says this about you, and we'll have all this variety so everyone can find their identity in stuff. And they can find their purpose and meaning in the stuff they have and in the stuff they produce, how much they offer to the system. So how much are you offering to the system in what you consume, keeping it going, and what you produce? So now again, it's manufactured into culture that you never feel good enough in what you're doing, what you're producing, how much work you're working, because we need the constant input to keep the system going, and that you never feel good enough in what you have. You never feel secure in what you have. And then add to that, most of these countries that we live in, most of the developed world, there are no social safety net. There are very little social safety net. It's all every man for himself. And then there's all this fear tactic around criminals and what might happen to you if you are poor and what might happen to you if you don't have the right education and what might happen to you, blah, 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 because you're going to be disenfranchised. Because the system is set up that way to make you fear being othered. Because when you're othered in our culture and in our society, it's really bad for you. Okay? So, is it any wonder that so many of us feel constant anxiety and constant stress? Because the bottom line is, right? We all power our houses with electricity. We all use fossil fuels. It's destroying the planet. It's destroying Native people groups. It's doing all these things, and we can't opt out because it was built way before we got here. Our systems of government and law that are literally set up to defend the interests of those at the top of the ladder. What are you going to do? Right? And I just think we don't need conspiracy theories about what's happening. It's right in front of our face. This is how it's always been. It's not some grand, elaborate reset plan. It's just the people at the top continuing to hoard for themselves and manufacturing it into culture that we continue to abide by it. And so we don't need big disclosure. We don't need to know what's happening behind the closed doors. We know what's happening behind closed doors. It's right in front of our faces. It's all right here. Making sure that there's constantly an other group and making sure that you constantly feel insecure so that you will be a good producer and a good consumer. And that you will not defend the people who are being disenfranchised by the system, because instead of that, you'll just feel guilty and shame and then go into defense. Or you're too worried about yourself. You're too busy meditating and nasal gazing and trying to manifest more abundance because you never feel like it's enough, because all the spiritual people tell you you're supposed to be having millions of dollars if you're really on alignment. And if you're not, then what's wrong with you? This constant push from literally every angle. And at this point now, it's literally being sold to us that it's spiritual to be constantly accumulating more wealth for yourself. I don't know how we even came up with that. That's never been a spiritual thing. It's always been, literally forever, one of the best ways to realize reality is to let go of our obsession with the physical reality. And now all of a sudden, literally, it's the boss babe culture, and now everyone is saying we're supposed to be manifesting abundance all the time. And it's spiritual to be rich, and if you're really in alignment, you'll be a millionaire. And it's what? Huh? How do we even, of course, I can see how we got here, but what are we talking about? No, absolutely not. The thing that's making us feel insecure is not that we're not millionaires. The thing that's making us feel insecure is not that we're not meditating enough. We have to acknowledge this system that constantly tells us, you need to be more. You need to be more. You need to be more. You are not enough. Because that is how it keeps going. Because again, the other way the system would collapse The other way, the system would collapse. If trickle-down economics isn't going to happen. Is if huge portions of the population started saying, I'm not afraid of the other group anymore. I refuse. You will not make me hate my brother anymore. I don't care what color their skin is. I don't care who they love. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care where they come from. I'm going to seek to understand them. I'm going to seek to see their humanity. I'm going to seek to see where they are being disenfranchised by the system. And I'm going to do what I can do to create equity. Second thing, you figure out what you need to feel basically good, and then you stop. You don't keep going. You redistribute after that. If all of us stopped, and then the third thing, you stop overproducing. You get to enough, and again, I understand, this is complicated. I'm going to make a whole video on this in the future, how to determine what enough is. Because it is complicated, and it's different for all of us. There isn't a prescription we can give. And it's a journey. What is enough for all of us is going to change. Okay, again and again, I want us to understand. This is not about becoming as minimalist as possible. This is not about poverty. This is not about giving up stuff you actually do need. Okay, it's not swinging one way or the other. We have created enough in our world that there is enough for everybody. And we sustainably could take care of all of us. If we let go of the idea that any of us are going to be millionaires, that any of us are going to have like so much more than we need. If we are like, okay, what if we all had the basics and were comfortable to the point where we could express ourselves and we could be at that hierarchy, like that Maslow's hierarchy of need, our base needs are met, and we can start to explore like actual life. We can get there. There's absolutely enough for that. Like a good life for everybody is possible, but we have to stop fighting. We have to stop fighting each other, and we have to start fighting for more, and this is something we decide on. So again, when we work on this insecurity in ourselves, we have to start to acknowledge, okay, this is being manufactured not by me. I didn't just decide to feel shitty about myself. I didn't just decide to feel inadequate. And me not being able to make it in the system is not a failing. I couldn't make it in the system. I was never going to be able to live in the standard Western world. I couldn't do it. I had to invent a whole different life for myself. And yes, I had a lot of resources that helped me do it. And I want that for everybody. And part of it was absolutely sacrificing a bunch of things I didn't need. Like, we don't need a car. We don't need cable. We don't need the fancy iPhone. We don't have new technology. I buy new clothes every 5 years. Just paring down to the utilities. And buying things for their utility. And then not being a part of fashion. Not being a part of trends. Not being a part of culture. You break the system. It can't keep going if we all stop participating in it. And then, like I say, on the outside of that, the constant overproduction, the constantly pushing yourself to make more and do more and put more out and more. But do you actually need to? Because some of us do. And this is what I'm saying, right? Like, this isn't to say that the single mom who's working 3 jobs and literally doesn't have time to brush her hair is holding up the system with her overproduction. No, of course not. She's being disenfranchised by the system. And I feel like we can play a role in making it easier for people like that to not have to do that anymore. If we stop over-consuming, If we stop making the system the way that it is, things have to restructure. And then there will be more chance of less of that. So part of the reason you can't feel good in this system, you can't succeed in this system, is probably because you're sensitive, and even though your mind has been indoctrinated that this is fine, and that that's what success is, and you should have that career, and you should have those clothes, and you need to be in, and you need to all of these things, because again, yes, of course, we were indoctrinated from absolutely day one that fitting in, and being accepted, and being approved of by culture is how we survive. And we all have the fear of death baked into us. That if we do something different, we'll die. And for most of us, we don't even see that there's another option. Okay? It's totally reasonable that so many of us feel terrible in our relationships and terrible in our jobs and terrible in the world we're living in. And it's because we can't even see that it's a thing that we could not do. It looks like the only thing. We're the fish in water. So I get it. Even being able to question, why do I feel shitty in this? But this is why I say, like, the first step is self-love. Because in order to wake up to the things that are like, whoa, like for instance, I feel shitty in my relationships every single time, and I'm trying so hard to do what I've been culturally indoctrinated is the right thing to do. And I want to run away and I want to sabotage it every single time. What's wrong with me? Sometimes we will then say, okay, maybe if there isn't something wrong with me, what's really going on? And you actually validate yourself, and you validate the things that feel shitty, and you validate, instead of like, what's wrong with me that I can't be good at this? You say like, what if this is the thing that's messed up? You will start to say like, well, I was trained that codependency is normal. That it's expected of me that this is what I'm supposed to be in a relationship. And I'm not that. And like, what? Could I create a relationship that is based on who I really am? Instead of what literally everyone around me is doing in all of their relationships. Like, that's a large part of what happened on my journey. Is I just stopped saying, what is wrong with me that I can't make this work? And I started like this was the thing that helped me like wake up to the truth of how messed up our society is. Because I was in it just like everyone else. And like having the conspiracy people tell me it was because aliens, I was like, I don't think that's it. Like, it has to be more practical than that. And it's like, yeah, it's completely reasonable. If you just stop blaming yourself for the things that you can't cope with in culture, it will reveal to you why you can't cope with those things. And then you will start to see the reality for how it actually is. It will stop being a mystery to you. You will awaken from the matrix. You won't need a conspiracy theory of an evil elite behind closed doors that have a big grand plot. No, it's been the same plot the entire fucking time. They want to be rich. They want to be richer than you. And they're doing it this way, through manufacturing insecurity. And they do it the same frickin' way since the beginning of time. They convince the population that these people are scary, these people are bad, these people are evil, so it's okay that we enslave them and we use their labor cheap to create massive wealth for us, and we'll give the kind of upper middle class some so that they'll continue on with it, and we'll keep them feeling insecure by manufacturing insecurity and fear of the other in them all the time, and that's how the system works. That's the plan. There, I just revealed it to you. That's the global agenda. Keep the masses disenfranchised and afraid of each other and constantly feeling like not enough. That's how they do it. So if you want to know what the whole big conspiracy theory is, that's it. This is it. Keep the masses disenfranchised, insecure, and afraid of each other and of not enough. Literally make it so there are huge portions of the population who have so much more than they'll ever need, like me, people like us, and get them to feel like they never have enough. Through the diet industry, through trends, through celebrities, through fashion, through everything changing all the time, and then constantly making them fear the other, the criminal, right? The criminal who's coming for your stuff, the other races who are coming for your stuff, those bad, scary people over there, the not normal, the different sexualities. Oh my God, scary. And I'm being mean, I know that. But like, this is what they do. This is how this happens. So that we will continually be afraid, we will continually overproduce, and then when we're afraid, again, when we're afraid of these people, as they're being disenfranchised, we don't defend it. We don't stand up against it. We don't call it out for what it is. We continue to pay for it. Because we're afraid of them. We kind of inside don't like them. Okay, so what if you know it in your head, but your body is scared to let go of this belief? Same with needing to be skinnier to feel more worthy. Self-love. Just keep having compassion for those parts. Because it is going to be scary. It absolutely is. Like, why are more people not awake? Why do we go into conspiracy theory and all these stories and this big fantasy that we have to do? Or ignore it and become navel gazers? Because the actual reality is just, yeah, you're just going to have to be different from culture. You're not going to get approved of. But it will feel better. But it's scary. Like, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, it's not just move to Asia. It's not just cut all your hair off. It's like, stop participating in clothes for a bit. See what happens if you don't lose weight. Can you learn to love yourself? Like, this liberation that comes when you finally realize you can be okay even without the thing, because you let yourself not pursue the thing, and then see yourself surviving anyways. Usually that's what we have to do. Shift to, how do I support myself and how do I love myself? Every time I feel like I need to be skinnier, what's really going on here? I'm not enough. Okay, that's my trigger. What do you need to feel safe? Do we actually have enough? Are we okay? Right? It's constant work. But eventually we do break ourselves out of it. But we have to start with recognizing it for what it actually is when it's starting to come up. When we feel that constant not enough, that has to be our trigger. Okay, what's really going on here? Is this indoctrination? What am I feeling in my body? Where do I feel it? Where am I assuming this means that I'm shitty? And what if that's not what it is? We just start to question. We have to start to question that guilt and shame. Sorry, which society in particular? All of them. If you don't feel secure and good enough, and like you can get your needs met practically, your society. Because there are a couple of places on the planet called the blue zones. And we need to understand this. The longest lived cultures, what are they? Generally speaking, they're monocultures, so everyone's the in-group. They take care of each other. They work to live. They don't live to work. And they live in areas on the planet that are abundant with resources. So they have security. They have security with each other. They share. They're a community. They work through cooperation to equally and adequately distribute resources, and then no one works more than they need to. They will close the store at noon if there's nobody else. Just look them up. Do a Google search. Blue zones. It's like hilarious to me. People are like, oh, yes. So like there's one in Greece, there's one in Costa Rica, there's the Loma Linda community in California, they're the 7-day Adventists. There's one in Japan, and I believe one in Spain, but yes, Italy, yes, that's the other one. But it's funny to me that they wrote a whole book on the diet. Why do these people live so long? Oh, it must be what they're eating. It's because they have a general quality of life that works for humans. What we're doing, our competition, right? Our competition, our every man for himself, our manufactured insecurities, this is what's killing us. And when we love ourselves enough that we stop saying there's something wrong with me all the time, the scary thing is, yes, you're going to realize it isn't something wrong with you. It's something wrong with culture. And now you have to change to be different from culture, which will make you fear, exactly, capitalism, which will make you feel the absolute existential dread of being different and getting kicked out of the tribe. And that is essentially the awakening process. That is what it actually takes to wake up, is to see yourself through that and realize it's not all self-improvement. Doesn't it come down to you wanted to feel you belong and you matter? Yeah, we all want that, but why do we want that? Because we think that's what gives us security. We are all indoctrinated to believe from day one, because of our codependent relationships with our parents, that love and approval equals getting my needs met and being provided for. It's a means to an end. That's not what you really want. What you really want is to feel like you can figure out how to survive. And this is the loop that all of us are in and most of us die in, is believing that that empowered feeling of I'm going to be okay comes from belonging. It doesn't. Growing into an adult is realizing what you want is to feel like whenever you face challenge, whenever you're scared, whenever something comes up, you have the capacity to figure it out. You can solve it. Belonging isn't freedom. Belonging isn't what you actually want. Exactly. The want for belonging is not the key. The want to feel like you can figure it out. Like you're empowered. That when you face challenge, when you don't know what to do, when you're scared, because why do we want to belong? So that when we're scared and when we don't know what to do and we don't know how to provide for ourselves, someone will come take care of us. For what reason? To keep us alive. That's what awakening to adulthood is. Realizing that you can figure it out. Yes, okay, stems from feeling invisible, but why? Why is that a wound? Why is that scary? Being abandoned, what is so bad about that? We have to go deeper, because that's not it. Because again, right, all of us, most people are like, oh, I have an abandonment wound. It's like, okay, so you're just going to have that forever until someone perfectly loves you? which will never happen, right? We're never going to have perfect security in our relationships. We're never going to be loved perfectly. We're never going to find perfect belonging. That doesn't exist. So if that's what we think we need to feel secure, we will never feel secure. If what we actually need to feel secure is, I know I can figure it out, because life is constantly going to be challenging. We're constantly going to be facing new things. We're constantly going to be in situations where we don't know what to do, where we're abandoned, where people don't understand us, where we don't fit in. And if we learn how to be there for ourselves and to face these things, we should be taught problem solving. But we're not taught problem solving. We're taught you either get rescued or you're fucked. Someone else has the answer or you can't find it. We're not taught how to learn from reality through pain and pleasure. We're not taught how to connect with our emotions. We're not taught to question society. We're literally taught, this is how it is. Find your group. If you can't find your group, fix yourself. Manufactured insecurity. You're seeing it now? It's literally everywhere. It's literally in your spirituality. It's in your self-help. It's in your self-improvement. It's the same shit dressed up as something different. If it's not teaching you how to be an empowered adult that will help you figure out what's going on, that will help you say, as I go forward in life, I will learn how to figure it out. I know how to learn from reality. I can be in pain, I can make mistakes, I can fall down, I can learn from it. If it's not that, it's the system. If it's not empowering you that you can figure it out from reality, here are tools for how to learn from reality. You can be an adult. Critical thinking, feeling your body, feeling your emotions, questioning things from that place. It's manufactured insecurity. This is why you can't feel good in the system. Because it doesn't teach you to problem solve. It doesn't teach you to look at what's actually happening. It teaches you to blame yourself or numb yourself in a system that's set up to disenfranchise most of the people for the profit of few. People aren't keen on living a delusional existence. It's hard and scary to wake up. And this is why I'm saying this now. You're asking these questions, and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be scary. We're told to keep the illusion is feeding itself, right? The more we're disconnected from our emotions, the more we're disconnected from our bodies, the more we're disconnected from pain and pleasure, the more we're being told we're not supposed to feel pain and pleasure. It's not that the abandonment wound isn't real. It's what's under that. Why is it scary to be abandoned? What does it mean to be abandoned? Why is being abandoned bad? What did it mean to be abandoned in your childhood? And how is it different now? Like, that's a huge revelation. It's like, yeah, in your childhood when you were abandoned, that was really bad for your survival. And you learned that in your nervous system. When I'm abandoned, I can't get my needs met. It was true. So that's what I'm saying. It's not real. But now that you're an adult, you can be abandoned. And you can still get your needs met. You can still approve of yourself. You can still love yourself. You can still validate yourself, which then allows you to go and be yourself and do what's good for you. Okay, and then if you're not good enough, you're not loved, you don't matter, what goes after that? Why is that so bad? Because those things in and of themselves mean nothing. Can you still get food if you're not good enough? Can you still get water if you're not loved? Can you still get shelter if you don't matter? As an adult? Right? As a child, maybe not. If you were abandoned by your caregivers, As a child, you can't provide for yourself. So that's why that wiring is in there. And then you can't grow and you can't become yourself. But as an adult, everyone can abandon you. And you can still make money. You can still buy food. You can still, and this is why I'm saying, the V for vendetta for all of us is realizing you can still express yourself and be yourself and go and live your life whether anyone likes you or not. Everyone in the world can think you're stupid, and you can keep going. What do you think the answer is, Samantha? Okay, so what's the best approach then to finding real growth? We start with always compassion for these parts and curiosity. Remember, these are my two main things. Compassion and curiosity. So the compassion is, this is not my fault, there's not something wrong with me. The curiosity is, what's really going on here? Why is this so scary? If I were to be abandoned, then what? Then what? Then what? Is this really a thing that is now actually going to kill me or stop me from being able to be myself? Or could I be abandoned and still express myself? Because it's in our nervous systems. We have to continue. So the question is, why am I still so affected by this? Because you will be for a while. You have to expose yourself over and over again to being rejected and still being provided for. And literally, you have to draw yourself into the present moment and get your body to register this new reality. Because for most of us, we're living in fantasies. We get rejected and it feels like we're going to die. And our body registers that we were going to die. And so it reinforces the story we already have. So we literally have to say, okay, I got rejected, and look, I'm fine. I lived. I still have food. You got that nervous system? You got to orient. This is how we do it. We let ourselves get abandoned and rejected. And then we get ourselves to see. Yes, it feels impossible, it won't, but once you live through it, you have that reference point forever. Exactly. It's kind of like doing exposure therapy. But I mean, we're exposed to it all the time. All of us are rejected on some level all the time. You don't really have to go seek it. All of us feel like we're being rejected all the time. All of us feel insecure all the time. So just let yourself feel that and then be like, is that true? Is that actually true? Am I actually insecure right now? Or is this manufactured? This is so true. All you have to do is do it once and the momentum is sparked. Absolutely. Give it a try. Really, really question your stories. Is this true? I just got abandoned, but you got to feel it. Did I just die? Did I just lose everything that I have? Did my house get taken away? Did my food get taken away? Am I out on the street dead now? No. And that's okay. It's not always something wrong with you. What we actually want is to feel resourced, is to feel capable of figuring it out. We don't want to be loved and approved of. That's a means to an end. That's how we got resourced as children. But it's not how we get resourced as adults. I learned to really, really viscerally for the first time about 7 years ago. I'm autistic and had a meltdown on my 30-minute lunch break when I couldn't get my medication. Absolutely. It's totally right. We have to be able to just see ourselves through these things. And it's hard and it's scary, and you're gonna feel like you're gonna die. And you're gonna do it anyways. And then you're gonna see that you don't die, and that is what sets you free. Yeah, totally. Okay? So this manufactured not enough, in everything is what needs to be questioned. And then you have the reference point forever. Exactly. Okay? So go read the article and start to have compassion and curiosity for yourself. So then you can start to check out of the situation. You can start to check out of the system through being free. And then you won't have to ask me how you check out. You'll know. You'll figure it out. Okay? You will figure it out. You will start to feel what doesn't feel good to you about our culture. And instead of blaming yourself and trying to fit yourself into it, or thinking I need to lose weight or whatever, you'll be like, no, this is what I don't want to do anymore. And yeah, I'm going to be rejected and people aren't going to get it and all these things are going to happen and I'm going to do it anyways because that's how I want to be. That's what feels good to me. It'll be in the description once I post this. The article will be in the description everywhere this is posted. So after the live is done. Yeah. And then you're going to realize that that's you checking out of the system. You don't need to figure out all, like, what works for me and how do I check it. It'll be the same thing. And you'll figure it out through feeling what doesn't feel good, curiosity, compassion, realizing the system is kind of fucked up. It's not you. And then where's your power within it? What actually feels good to you? What do you really want to do? What do you want to participate in? And then that's how we build the new world. Okay? Slow, steady. It's not going to be blown up at the banks. I'm sorry. It's going to be each person eventually realizing they're just going to not do it anymore, and then the system crumbles because we stop participating in it. And we're building a new one at the same time. Okay? So stop blaming yourself. Get curious. What if this isn't something wrong with me? What would I like instead? These are the questions we want to ask ourselves. Okay? All right. I love you. Hope that was good for a day. I know it's scary. I know it's hard. I know it's confusing. You're going to have questions. Get curious with your questions. Sit with them for a while. You'll figure it out. I know you will. It's uncomfortable to not know for a little while. It's uncomfortable to not know what to do. Well, what's the answer to this? Well, get curious. Sit with it for a bit. See what you come up with. Okay? All right. That's great. That's all I got today. I love you. You're all great. We'll see you next week.